Okay, other meme. Guys, I was thinking about this, okay? Hold on. There's a little bit of remaining autism, okay? Like 5 minutes, okay? I was thinking about ethics, and I have questions, okay? I have considerations, okay? That I'm curious about. And it pertains to what we just watched, which is why I'm thinking of it now. Okay. So, and I'm genuinely looking for opinions here, okay? I'm going to try not to condescend to people who have answers that I don't think are sufficiently good, okay? So, here's the thing. I am a utilitarian, right? That's my ethical framework. So I think that, you know, things are good or bad based on their consequences. That applies to both act and rule, meaning that something can be good even if it has a bad immediate effect, because in the long run it can enable good long-term effects, or vice versa. Something can be bad even if it has an immediate good, you know. So an example of that would be, you know, maybe a police officer breaking into a house without a warrant and fudging the system could in one instance have a good outcome because they know this dude's a murderer and is about to kill again, you know? So breaking in that instance is good, but it's still bad broadly to do that because as a rule, police ignoring the requirement for warrants would lead to far more harm than good. It's a valuable rule, even though sometimes it will lead to bad outcomes. As a whole, it leads to good ones. So that's how I think of things, you know. And there are a lot of considerations to take here because I mean we're literally talking about like ethics, but so here's my thing, okay? And it's about the expectation to good. See, in utilitarianism, as I understand it, there is not a distinction between the obligatory and the supererogatory, as there is with, say, you know, uh, deontology. So that is to say, utilitarianism doesn't really give you a metric for what good things you have to do and what good things you should do. So utilitarianism can help you figure out what's good and what's bad, but not how much good you have to do. So to give you an example of this, okay? I think we can all agree it's good to donate some money to charity. That's a good thing to do, okay? But how much do you have to do before you warrant condemnation? So this is kind of an odd example, I think, but money in the hands of most of you guys is worth less than money in the hands of people that charities give money to, you know? Like $5 to you is a Starbucks drink, and $5 to a homeless person could be like death forestalled another day, you know? So it is generally accepted, I think, that it's good to donate some money to good causes, you know? My question is, like, how do you determine when it's acceptable, essentially, to get mad at a person, to condemn them for not doing a good thing? So sometimes I think it's really easy, okay? If you are at a public pool and you're the only one around and you see somebody drowning in the pool and you just stare at them drowning, you know? I think it's reasonable to say that you could be quite mad at them for not saving them. That is an inaction which is worthy of condemnation. That's what we're talking about. Inaction which merits condemnation. That's what we're talking about. But on the other hand, like, while living in LA, I didn't give money to every homeless person I walked by. First of all, I would have run out of money because there are a lot, you know. There are quite a few. But also, even if people do have money in their wallets, while walking by a homeless person, you know, you don't always give your money, right? I know you don't. Anyone who says they do every time is lying, of course. We do let our personal biases affect our decision-making all the time, and we do often refrain from doing good things that we could have otherwise done. Or to put it another way, guys, you could always be donating a little bit more, dedicating a little bit more time to volunteering, you know, spend a little bit more time at the soup kitchen. You could always be a little bit kinder. But at what point does it become worthwhile to condemn someone, you know? Now, from my perspective, because I don't know if there's an objective answer to this, from my perspective, I felt like the consideration as to when you should condemn a person actually isn't an ethical one. It's a pragmatic one. That because consequentialism doesn't distinguish between what is good to do, when you have to do a good thing versus when you just should do a good thing, that whether or not you condemn a person is just a practical issue. So like Hassan, for example, this was the center of the whole Hassan debate, where could Hassan do more for socialism? Sure. I think everyone could. Like literally every human. I think everyone could do better on everything. I mean, if you want to be really particular about it, you know. But is it worthy to criticism? Should he be condemned for not doing more? Well, maybe you can encourage him to do more, but I don't think condemnation is warranted there. I don't think that's worthwhile at all. But the issue is, I don't know if I fully believe that, because I do think it's morally wrong to not save a person drowning in a pool. You know? I don't just think me condemning that person would be a practical consideration. I think it's morally condemnable, if that makes any sense. So, I don't know. I know it depends on your personal definition of an unreasonable act, but that leaves so much room, and I don't know what a good answer to that would be. I feel like there is no way to even... I feel like you could only ever really arrive at an intersubjective answer, not an objective one. Like you could arrive at ones which are deemed reasonable given the context of the system that you're in, but there's no way of producing a universally understandable answer, which is in line with my broader ethical philosophy because I'm not a moral realist, you know. What is the utility of condemnation? It keeps people from doing it again. If you condemn certain types of behavior, it discourages people from doing it. You know what I mean? But there's a difference between condemning a person for doing bad and praising them for like or like encouraging them to do more. So for example, if a person let another die by drowning in a pool, you would never encourage them to do more afterwards, right? Like you would never go up to a person and go like, "You know, hey, I think you could do better. Next time you see a person drowning in a pool, go and save them, huh?" I don't think you could really... Nobody would do that. I don't think you would condemn them because their inactivity, their you know, non-participation is immoral. I don't really know if there's an answer to this. I genuinely don't. Do you need a psychology expert to make these decisions, or can we go off assumption? No, I don't think it's necessarily a psychology thing. I just think it's a matter of the extent to which you can do this. Hold on. There is no line. It's never okay to condemn someone for inaction. Condemnation for failing to act as opposed to acting poorly is a violation of positive freedom and is therefore not optimal in an ethics system that values freedom. Oh, no, I strongly disagree. Because an expectation for action is how you assure others positive freedoms. Otherwise, you're not ensuring positive freedom. You're ensuring negative freedom. Positive freedom is about producing the conditions that allow you to maximize your will. Negative freedom is freedom from restriction. And what you're talking about is minimizing restriction through social condemnation. That would be an argument against law, but law improves positive freedom. Yeah, I don't know if I have an answer for this, right? The thing is, like, we know these systems, these considerations are different when we talk about very powerful people, for example, like Jeff Bezos, you know? I think that it's morally wrong that Jeff Bezos doesn't do more with his money or, you know, participates in the system that he exists in the way that he does, possibly because my expectation for his behavior is magnified through his power. But I don't know if there's like a way of mathing that out. Like, obviously scale is worthy of consideration here, you know, but... And then there are other things as well, like responsibilities to your audience. Large public figures, even medium-sized or small ones, I think, have a responsibility to cultivate a decent community, to lead by example, to be holistic in their positions and not allow them to arrive at bad positions through, you know, exemptions, you know, anything like that. So, yeah, I don't know how you'd overcome that exactly. It really just seems intersubjective. do you think people generally should expect X behavior? Then yes, you can condemn them for not doing it. And if you think generally people don't expect X behavior, then no, you can't condemn them for doing it. But that just feels like it rolls back around to being a practical consideration rather than an ethical one. Maybe it really is just a matter of practicality. Yeah, like what Rain Warrior says. You don't have to say it's morally wrong, Vaush. You can just say, I condemn it, and condemning it will lead to better outcomes. Yeah, maybe it's not morally wrong to let the person die in the water. However, it is a moral good to engage in the strictest possible condemnation of the person who would do so as to encourage better behavior in the future. But does that work? Something isn't morally wrong, but it is morally right to condemn it as severely as possible. Well, that kind of fixes the semantic difference. I mean, that fixes the semantic argument. It just feels intuitively wrong. But I guess it works, yeah. In that case, you would never really say inaction is morally wrong, only that there's utilitarian good to be found in condemning the wrong kinds of inaction, depending on a bunch of circumstances relating to it. That feels intuitively very wrong, but I think it's consistent. Maybe I should talk to somebody about that. I don't know. Have somebody come on stream sometime. No, because no one's perfect. Well, this would allow for people to not be perfect, you know. Explain what being a moral realist means. A moral realist believes that there is an objective set of moral truths in the universe. That maybe we can't ever know them necessarily, but there's a literal object, like it's essentially coded into the universe. It's as much a rule of the universe as the laws of physics, as how mass interacts with gravity and time. You know, it's just not written mathematically. It's written ethically, or something like that. You know, they're very dumb, and I'm smart. Thank you. Like if a woman falls onto a rail track and there are many people waiting for a train, no one does anything to save her? Who's to blame? Well, blame is difficult to say. Are people farther towards the back of the crowd less to blame because they may not have seen what happened earlier? You know, you have that whole like tragedy of the commons crowd freeze up bullshit. It's really like, is it morally wrong to do that? Or is it simply morally right to condemn it? But would you condemn something that isn't morally wrong? Can you condemn something that isn't morally wrong? Can it be morally right to condemn a thing that isn't morally wrong? I'm trying to think, what's an example of that? If it gives better outcomes? Okay, yeah. But if the behavior we're talking about already has bad outcomes, the behavior we're condemning, then wouldn't that be morally wrong by utilitarian definition? There are bad outcomes to not saving a person drowning in a pool. Does that not make it morally wrong, like tautologically, within a rule utilitarian mindset? I don't know if we can semantics our way around the moral consideration of the initial act. Fuck, I don't know if it can just be a practical thing, I think. What does it mean to condemn something that's not wrong? I don't know. What would you condemn that isn't morally wrong? What would you condemn? Yeah, I guess there are a lot of subjective things that I would condemn that aren't morally wrong. Yeah, smoking. Yeah. Yeah, it's not morally wrong to take up smoking, I don't think. You have a right to do that. But you can condemn it. No, wait, yeah, that tracks. Yeah. It's not morally wrong to smoke, but you can condemn smoking. And it can be morally good. Yeah, and it can be morally... No, wait, hold on. It can be morally good to condemn smoking, even though smoking, at least the act itself, can't be considered morally wrong. I mean, maybe you harm others when you smoke. Maybe vaping. I mean, we can abstract the conditions here. I think, you know, it's right. I know secondhand smoke, but you work with what I'm saying here. You can say like unhealthy eating. Like it's not morally wrong to eat unhealthily. I do not think it is. You have a moral right to be fat or whatever. But there can be a moral good in, if not condemning fat people, then condemning like unhealthy eating as a concept, you know, and is sort of appraisal of good. Well, no. We condemn, or will condemn children eating a bunch of cookies out of the jar, even though morally it's not wrong for them to eat the cookies out of the jar. When the kids run to the cookies, you know, it's not immoral for them to do so, even though there might be harmful outcomes, because the harmful outcomes fall within the purview of of autonomy, of self-control. So there are things that can have... Okay, so this is a function of rule utilitarianism, where you can have overlapping considerations. So eating a bunch of unhealthy food has bad outcomes. That's easy enough to track. But there is a greater moral right above the harm done there, and that is the right to bodily autonomy. Right? So even if there are bad outcomes to eating unhealthily, there are good outcomes to respecting people's right to eat unhealthily. But there's also moral good in condemning the behaviors that people can engage in which are unhealthy, even if they have a right to. Another example of this would be gambling. Gambling has bad outcomes, that's level 1, but level 2 is that you have an autonomous right to engage in that behavior, which is a moral good, but then, as a third level, there's moral good in condemning the original behavior, even if a person has a right to engage in it. So in that case, you have behavior which is harmful but not immoral because of an overlapping consideration with autonomy, and then you have a condemnation of something which is not immoral. Okay, that works. I think that works. Isn't that just immoral with extra steps? No, no, no. The extra steps are very, very important. The overlapping considerations are the framework of rule utilitarianism. Well, you need to account for the examples, Otimus, I think. But it can't be a moral condemnation, right? It can be a different kind. Well, we say moral condemnation, but we can just say, like, we don't like the behavior. If we're talking about pragmatism, then we can just say, like, you know, this is bad. Like, we don't have to invoke, like, the moral causes. Vaush, but in the examples you're using, the harm is not inflicted on anyone else. Not necessarily, right? Because harm done to an individual is harm done socially, right? If you choose to, you know, hurt yourself with like gambling debts or this, that, or the other. I think there are sort of like reciprocal effects socially. But you do bring up a good point, okay? That everything we're talking about right now, all of these harmful behaviors, fall under the umbrella of you have a right to self-determination, of bodily autonomy. What umbrella protects watching a person drown to death? Is it just you have a right to not get involved? Is that literally it? You have a right... Oh, fuck, is that a right? You have a right to not get involved, but we have a moral right to condemn that behavior, even if they have the right to not get involved. No, guys, I'm not talking about, like, you can't swim either. I'm talking maybe a person's upside down drowning in a 2-foot pool of water. No chance of harm. We have to bring this out to the most extreme example. No threat of you drowning as well. No threat of harm to you. You are just watching them die when you could easily, effortlessly, with no harm whatsoever, save them. Legally, you're not required to save other people's lives. That's true, and I agree with that. And law should be an extension of morality, at least in some respects. I mean, you know, it's, to an extent. So maybe... Fuck, wait. Okay, so maybe that is it then. Because the moniker of libertarian socialism, of positive liberty, is you can... Okay, wait, I think I've got it. The moniker of positive liberty is you can do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting other people. But nowhere in that definition does it include you must do things to help other people, right? So the moniker, you can do what you want as long as it doesn't hurt others, does not include saving a drowning person at your own expense, or even if it's not at your own expense, right? So maybe, given that baseline moniker, the right to do what you want, it is not immoral to let a person drown. However, and this is a very big however, because you're watching a person drown, there is tremendous utility in condemning that behavior as severely as possible To the point that if I found out a person just watched another drown, I would never talk to them again. It would be morally abhorrent. Are we getting a... Oh my god. Does that mean the government ignoring a public health crisis is not morally wrong in and of itself? No. Just because an individual has a right to do what they want, as long as it doesn't hurt others, doesn't mean a government does. The government's not just an organization of people. It's a, it's a system with it's their job too. So I think it's very different there. Okay, so anyway, I think what I was saying was, you could argue it's not immoral to let the person drown, but then you could argue that there is such overwhelming utilitarian gain from condemning that behavior anyways, that for all intents and purposes, it might as well be treated as it's immoral. Maybe this would be a distinction between technical immorality and like social immorality or intuitive immorality. Does that make any sense? Have you guys followed my thought process on this? I feel like this is consistent, but I would have to test it for a bit. Or I'd have to think about it. Like, why is this wrong? And then try to fit it through my... Like, we can run tests on this. Like, not donating money to charity or giving money to the homeless. That fits just fine. What about, like, really severe inaction, you know? What about, like Jeff Bezos or whatever? Maybe you could argue it's not immoral for Jeff Bezos to hoard his hundreds of billions of dollars, but there's such utility in condemning it. There's so much, there's so much positive utility in condemning it that it functionally becomes that anyway. It's always the difference between, does a person have a right to something, and, is it okay to condemn them anyway, I think. I'd have to think about this more. What about a mother refusing to feed her child? Well, I guess... Wait, hold on. The issue, I think that works with my system. The issue here is that I feel like I've created a catch-all system here, right? Like, basically what I'm saying is, here are the things that I think are bad, and then also these things, morally, I can't say that they're morally wrong, but I'll condemn them anyway because of their utility. And where am I drawing that utility from? Well, considerations of what's good and bad. Is that catch-all, or do I... Well, I'm a moral anti-realist, so I guess if a person had a different set of ethical positions, they could... Shit. I feel like I'm trying to reinvent the wheel right now. If anyone has any texts that they think pertain to this, then feel free to email me their titles. You're looking for a combination of utilitarianism and deontology? Nah, fuck deontology. I'm not talking about deontology right here. Real utilitarianism can perfectly accommodate the idea of overarching, moral rules. I don't think you need deontology to pull from that. I'm trying. What is this? Hold on. Okay, so this is from sparknotes.com. Wait, what? Oh, this is the SparkNotes of John Stuart Mill's utilitarianism. Okay, this is a highly academic text. I think that if you're a lifeguard, letting a person drown is actively immoral, because you've taken on an obligation. The law would agree with me. The law and morality aren't the same things necessarily. If you're just a bystander watching a person drown, you're not legally, you're not implicated. But if you're a lifeguard and you watch them drown, then you absolutely are. Okay, quick read, if there's anything here. Mill says that throughout history, one of the biggest barriers to the acceptance of utility has been that it does not allow for a theory of justice. In this chapter, Mill will determine whether the justice or injustice of an action is something intrinsic and distinct from questions of utility. In examining this, it's necessary to determine what sense of justice is itself, derivative form or combination of other feelings. Mill begins by trying to pin down the meaning of justice by coming up with a list of those things that are commonly classified as just or unjust. First, it is considered unjust to deprive someone of his legal rights. However, this concept has exemptions. For example, a person may have legal rights he should not have. His rights may have been the provision of a bad law. While people vary on whether bad laws can be justly disobeyed, all people agree that laws can be unjust. Therefore, law cannot be the ultimate standard of justice. A second form of injustice comes from depriving someone of something he has a moral right to possess. Third, it is considered just that a person receive what he, quote, deserves, and unjust that he obtains something he doesn't deserve. People are thought to deserve good things if they have done right, and evil things if they have done wrong. A fourth form of injustice is to violate an agreement with someone or disappoint expectations that one knowingly nurtured. Fifth, it is considered unjust to show favoritism and preference in inappropriate circumstances. However, it is not generally necessary to be impartial. For example, one doesn't have to be impartial in the selection of friends. The claim is rather that a person should be only influenced by those considerations that should apply in a given circumstance. Finally, the idea of equality is seen by many as a component of justice. Some people may make an exception for the sake of expediency, however. I feel like I'm going to need more than this. Yeah, I can look more. I'll need more than this. I think I have to. Was it morally okay for Walt to watch Jane die in Breaking Bad? Well, that would be kind of what we're talking about here, right? There's a part 2. Scroll down. Chill. It's fine. It's fine. I'll check later. I'll check later. I'll check later. I'll check later. I'll check later.